In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to digitize your calligraphy. There are many ways to digitize your calligraphy, but this is the best way I've found for myself, so I hope it turns out to be helpful for you as well. The first thing you're going to need to do is scan your artwork, and I use an Epson Perfection V600 photo. I love this scanner. I think it was about $220. It works fantastic, so I highly recommend it. And I also put a link in the comments section of this tutorial. So just take your calligraphy and scan it into your computer. You want to scan at least a DPI of 300. Anything less, you're going to not get the quality you need to digitize. Okay, now that we scanned in our image, I scanned it in as a TIFF instead of a JPEG. You can use the JPEG, but I find that TIFFs are a little higher quality. Okay, so we got this, we scanned it in at 300 or higher DPI. I actually scanned this in at 600 DPI, and I'm gonna open up both Photoshop and Illustrator. This might take a second. And for Illustrator, I'm just going to I'm actually going to work on a menu. So I'm going to call this menu, but it is for my digitized calligraphy. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to just shrink this down a little bit, move it over here, and look at Photoshop. Okay, so we're in Photoshop, and I want to duplicate my background layer just to keep it safe in case something happens to it. And I'm going to call this calligraphy, and I'm going to zoom in. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the black on here is the highest contrast to the white. And the way I'm going to do that is to go over to levels, and I'm going to select my black eyedropper, and I'm going to come in here and click until it really starts to fill in any little tiny gray marks that might be around. Okay, looks pretty good. Then I'm going to take my white dropper, and I'm just going to click around the white. My goal here is to get this as low as possible. The more space there is between these, the more contrast between your lettering and the paper, and the easier it is to remove the paper. This is pretty good. Honestly, I'm not gonna get it any further than that. It looks great. And then I'm going to merge down so it's on my calligraphy layer. And just a little side note, this is my choice how I like to digitize my calligraphy, but there's lots of ways that you can do it. This is just the way I like to do it. I'm going to grab my lasso tool, and I'm going to digitize this word first. So I'm going to grab it and click, hold, and drag it over to Illustrator, and it's going to dump it right there. Perfect. Now we can digitize. I'm going to pull it out here so you can see that the white paper is going to go away. We're going to go to Window, select Image Trace. Now for your preset option, there's a couple options you can select here. Some people like to select black and white logo. I recommend that if your upstrokes in calligraphy are thicker. For somebody who writes like that, it could work well for you. I used to use black and white logo, but it really just, to me, it made my calligraphy not look like my calligraphy. It made it look really standardized kind of, and I didn't like that. So now I use sketched art. So select sketched art, and you can see I had the ignore white, so it's already removed the white background. Always make sure you have ignore white checked so it will remove your paper. Then I don't see any issues here, but sometimes if my upstrokes are really thin, what happens is there's a space, so I'll have to go through my threshold and increase it until they connect. You can also do that, I'll show you a little bit later, but you can do that with the smoothing tool too. If you increase it, it just makes it thicker and thicker. It's taking a second to, yeah. Okay, let's move it back down to 120. Could actually, think it looks good there. You can increase paths. That's another one if you're seeing spaces between your lettering. If you increase the paths, you'll have more places to edit. But that's pretty much it for image trace. And then all I'm going to do to vectorize this is expand. I recommend vectorizing because it's going to give you all these paths so that you are able to edit your calligraphy more. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do this. And once you vectorize, you can increase the size of this and you're not going to lose the quality. It's not going to be pixelated. Okay, so we're selected here. Remember, we have the direct select tool and I've clicked on my lettering. That's why I have all these paths available to me. Then I'm gonna go to the left and click on my smooth tool. This is a really quick way to smooth out your work. But be mindful, if your work starts getting a little crazy and not looking like your calligraphy, then you've gone too far with the smoothing tool, and just Command Z to go backwards. So this is looking pretty good. And it's not going to completely make your calligraphy perfect. You're gonna have to go in there to work on that a little bit more. What the smoothing tool does is it removes some of the paths, and that way your calligraphy looks smoother. So I think this is about as far as I can go with the smoothing tool. Let's see if I can use it in here. Okay, now I'm gonna have to do some of the hard work myself, and that is where all the time-consuming part of this comes into play. So I want this to be a little more curved. I'm gonna curve it up. So you have an anchor right here, and the anchor you can pull out or push in. And then these are your handles, and you can move your lettering with the handles. As you can tell, this can be extremely time consuming. So I'm not gonna make you watch me do this for this entire word. I'm gonna speed it up. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the way that this looks. It looks pretty smoothed out. One thing to mention is calligraphy is not a font, so you don't have to be super hard on yourself that everything looks perfectly smooth. I mean, I can see a bump right here, but that's just the nature of calligraphy, and I'm also pretty far zoomed in. So the further out you go, the more you'll be able to see that it looks really good. I was super hard on myself when I started doing this, and I started to realize that it actually didn't matter when I got my printed pieces back. They looked perfect. So don't be too hard on yourself. I hope this was helpful for you. If it was, please leave a comment below. If you have any questions, also comment your questions. I'm happy to answer them. Thanks for watching.